Okay, so welcome back again. From the last video, we just talked about how we were going to continue with hatching and finishing all the sections. And there's some extra details that I've added in, which we'll just go and have a quick look at. So I think as you go through, certainly with drawing for set design, you'll pick out your details and you'll give them drawing numbers, and normally there'll be a drawing book where you can block out the numbers that you require for your drawing. So you might have, for example, if this came up in a script and it might be assigned a set number, you'd have set number 001, which we call the drawing stamp, and a drawing number. So normally the plan and elevation would be drawing number 001 of that block, and then all of the details called out approximately in sequentially. So you'd have, I don't know what we've put for number 2, and it's a good rule of thumb is to start with your AA elevation or section and go through chronologically, so that when someone's reading the drawing, they're not going, the first detail they look at on elevation AA is not detail number 7 or whatever. So we would say that detail 1, which is window detail 1, which is drawing number 002, and then call out as you go. So 3, 4, again pointing out 4, number 4, number 5 is the door, and then when we get down to where do we go to? 5 on the door, 6 on the stair, number 8, number 3, so, and number 7 is the mezzanine. Now, I've kind of just basically told you to do one thing and shown you another, but you get the idea. I think I was putting these on quite quickly, so what I might do is, do I need to move that? So what's that in there? So here's the thing. I'm not too sure what this thing is here, this line. So we're just going to open that with SketchUp and have a look at what that could be through CC. Be where we've just got the stairs. Yeah, so we need to make sure we hide that. Go to our scene tab. Let's update, file, save, and then when we come on here, this should disappear. There we go. That makes sense. So always, as well, you need to keep your eye out for things like that, which can, especially when you're layering up viewports, it's very important to make sure that all the information is what you want to see. So just keeping an eye on everything as you go through. So going back to the detail numbers, once you have all your detail numbers set out, I'll generally add a little construction note box, which will just say read with drawing 002, and I call them all out on there, so that normally you have a drawing stamp on here with your production title and everything else, but for this purpose we're just going to say these are the drawings to read with this, and then that becomes a full pack of drawings. And what I like to do is print these out at A3, keep them in a small folder, which I can then carry around with me. So whenever I go to the stage, or if I go to the workshops or anything like that, I've always got copies on me, and we can talk about, if the chippies or whatever want to talk about a particular drawing, I've always got one to hand, even though it's not full size. So we're kind of happy with all of that now, and we want to look at putting the final touches on to our drawing. Oh, the other thing I've added, I always put some views of the model just to give it a little bit of an extra flavour, so people when they're looking at it, they can see you know, what we're doing and what it looks like in 3D. So it's always a good idea. So at this stage now we're happy, so we're going to save, and we're going to go back into the model, open the SketchUp, and we're going to do all of our views, view 1, and we're going to start adding some shadows. So bring my shadow settings box over here and turn on shadows. Then we can play around with the slider and just see, we want something that gives us some sort of dynamic lighting. It's quite nice, some long shadows there. Play around with the months and the time of day. Quite like the idea of it being across the floor like that. Let's see. Yeah, so I'm happy there. And I always put it up to quite light, and I don't want the shadows to be too dark, because it can get muddy on a black and white print if the shadows are too intense, because you can make them super dark. Which looks great for some things, like if you're exporting this view to draw over in Photoshop or something like that, or if you want to just export the shadows, then you can, but that's another video for another day. I think we'll probably go around about the 660 is about what I like to see. Okay, and we're just going to use our scenes tab, and we're going to update our scene with shadows. And then we're going to make a note also of the time of day, and just write this down. So we're always looking at the time, which is 5:06, and the month 8:05, 160. Oh, one other thing to do in order to keep the shadow settings light in your layout drawing, we've got it clicked onto ground here. So if I come out of here and I'll just let that recalibrate, you'll see that the shadow is casting on the ground. I don't actually want to see it on the ground, I just want it to be on the faces. So if we go back to view 1, I just want it to cast shadows on faces of geometry we've created. So we're going to click off ground, and we're just going to update the scene again. And that just means that it's a little less info heavy when you're taking it back into layout, because it gets to a point where as you're going through, the more information you add, the heavier the drawing becomes, and therefore the laggier layout can be. So let's look at view 2, and we're going to do the same again. We'll turn on our shadows, and you'll notice this is the sliders. They don't stay where you wanted where we've set them. So we have to reset them each time. That's why I always write them down. So we can go 05:06 PM. 8-05 160, and that just gives some continuity to the shadow settings, so that when you're looking at the model from different angles, you have the correct shadows are being cast. Now, I say that for the full, when you're looking at the full picture of your interior. When you come onto your section cuts, you've got to imagine that the shadows are being cast as if half of the building is missing. So we'll look at that and then we'll decide the best way forward. So again, we're just going to say update the scene. Oh, again, we're going to turn off the ground. Wait, turn off ground. So update the scene. That's fine. And then we do the top. Fine with that. Now, plan section through window. Here's a perfect example. I turn on my shadows. And again, we're casting on the ground, and this will have a knock-on effect to your viewport in layout. So you don't want to see this being cast on the ground. So we're going to turn that off, and let's just turn our shadows to where we said before, 5:06. Oh, 5:06 p.m. 8-05. 160. That's casting some shadows, but we're not getting. I'm just going to update that so I can come back to it in a second. Just to show you. Where in the previous one, if all of these windows were intact, you would have the full shadow being cast across the floor there. But because we're missing half the building, you have to play a little game of like, you know, am I happy with that? Can we make it slightly more interesting? I mean, you're playing with half of, like I say, half of the building, so, and you don't want the shadows to be misleading and to sort of look odd. So I think we might do that, and then maybe make it a little less. So I'm actually happier with that because it's not creating any shadows that look odd, but it's also giving me sort of a two-tone effect, which will work nicely on the plan. So I'm happy with that. So I'm going to update my plan section, and plan section floor will remain as is. Plan section through mezzanine. Let's do the shadows on again. Turn off the ground, and let's have a look at 5:06 p.m. 8-05. 160. And again, we're getting these sort of half shadows, so let's have a little play about again. We don't want it to be too confusing. Just going to look at my. So it's 5:07, 10:01. So I'm going to write this down so it's consistent on the plan through the windows and the plan through the mezzanine. So it's 5:07, 10:01. 171. So let's go. And the reason I'm doing it like this is because it really is, you know, you just got to suck it and see, and just see what works and what doesn't. Again, I know I say it a lot, but there isn't a right or wrong really. It's just, you know, it's what I like in terms of keeping consistency through the drawing. And you get a little bit of something there through the top window, so I'm happy with that. And I mean, you know, shadows are Now, because it's a reflected plan, the shadows will normally go really dark. There you go. So we're just gonna, you won't get much in the way of play with the light when you're looking up at the ceiling, because obviously the shadows are wanting to be cast on the floor that it doesn't exist because it's been cut away. So what we'll do is we'll take it up to about 72, and that just gives it some shade and helps it pop out from the page as well. So happy with that. Reflected just the stairs, don't need that. So section AA, and let's turn on our shadows, and we'll do 507, 506, sorry. This is back to the original shadows that I've had set on the first, on the views. 5, 160. Now, because the light is coming in through these windows, these are naturally going to be in silhouette. So there's two things we can do. We can either, oh, no, hang on. It's because I haven't put that as PM. There you go. But there's not much dynamism there, kind of flat. So let's have a little play around with the sliders, see if we can get something a little more, again a little bit something there. Okay, so that's quite nice, quite like that. Let's make a note of that one. That's 8:45 AM, 9:14, 160. And we don't want it on the ground. And update our scene. Section B. Turn on shadows. Not on the ground. And let's go with the one that we just looked at, which was 08:45 AM. Okay, and again, the dynamic of that is not great, so let's just play with the slider a bit, see if we can get something a bit more interesting. That's better. I just want to maybe take that down a bit. Just because I don't want the shadows, these lines here, I don't want them to confuse matters too much, so take it up to 68, that's quite good. We can also have a little play with fog settings here, because it might be nice to fade this background out slightly. So if we look at displaying the fog, and then we can play with that. Yeah, I like that, that's good. So we'll update that scene. And section C. I'm just going to speed this up now, so you got the vibe basically. So we'll just speed this up a bit, so you can. Okay, so that's all of them done. I think we're good to go back into layout now. So if we go File, Save, and we can go into our layout file. Hopefully that will update, just give it a minute. And there we go. So a much more interesting looking drawing. It reads a lot better. Everything sort of pops out a bit now. And it just really, all those basic things that you can do with shadow settings, fog settings, really help to sell the idea, sell the drawing. And you know, this is what differentiates what we do as set designers from perhaps architectural renderings in a way, because there's a slightly more sort of artistic bent to what we do. But yeah, just, you know, play around with it as well. You know, I might, if this was me on a job, I might look at that and I might think, actually, you know, I'm going to go in and I'm going to play with the shadows a bit more. I'm going to get more of a view to, you know, try and get this to work a bit better. But I mean, for what it is and for what we're doing here, and really just to give you the flavour, I think, you know, we've done pretty good amount of work, and there's plenty there for construction to A, cost from, and B, for them to start looking at flattage runs, opening sizes, you know, because essentially that is what they are after at this stage with the plan and elevation. And we've also, just to cover, when we do our title blocks and titles, you always have the name of the project. So for this, I've just called it Set Interior Design for SketchUp and Layout. Then you would have the set name, so Interior New York Loft. Then whether it's a plan elevation or you window detail 1, window detail 4, you know, all of this stuff. Then the scale, 1/4 inch to a foot, or if you prefer metric, you know, whatever. The date and your name. That's generally what I always put in the title. And there you have it. That's it. That's the drawing all complete. We're going to go File, Save. Because there's one last little trick that we can do which will really help when it comes to printing. I've touched on it before when we talked about things being either raster images or vector lines, and although this will print out relatively nicely at this stage of the game, when I know that we're pretty much finished, there's not going to be any alterations really to happen now, I'll go to my document setup. I'll go to paper and I will go to output resolution as high, and I will also go to my SketchUp model tab. If we click on this viewport, I'm going to turn this to a hybrid, and if you watch, this will become really crisp. See that like furry line? That'll become nice and crisp now, and you'll get nice crisp lines when you print out as well. You just give it a minute. Okay, so what I've done is I've gone ahead, because you don't really need to watch me doing this. It's kind of, you know, takes a while for each one to update into its from raster to hybrid or vector. So I've actually gone ahead and just done this all, but I just want to point out that any of the sections where we've been using the fog settings, that's one thing that we won't be able to turn that into a hybrid render, because you need to have it on raster render for the fog settings to show up. So that's just one thing to bear in mind. But if we click around in here, I can bring my SketchUp model drop down, and it just says there that hybrid render. And you know, some of the other things you can do when you're at this stage, if you wanted to, you know, you could probably let's say from DD, we could pick out some of these lines in the foreground in a slightly thicker, just to make them pop forwards. So if we just make sure that, and if we then change the stroke style to 8, maybe a bit bigger, let's try 1, and it just helps to pop that forward. You can go around and just find areas where you want the line work to be slightly thicker. I wouldn't go too mad on these sorts of things, but anything in the foreground, really, you should have a thicker line. Obviously the section line would be your thickest line. So where else could we do something like that? You know, there's a foreground piece there, so if we go to G, and again, you know, things like this can be pretty much personal preference, depends what you like to see. Actually, we could just do that opening. So if I hold shift, it just locks it into the change that to 1. And it just helps to sell that as being more in the foreground. And we might put one on. If I wanted to, if I had time, I could put a slightly thicker one around the mezzanine level. I'm not going to do that now because I feel like we're at a stage where if you wanted to do that, you could. I don't know why that's gone like that. But you don't really need me to show you that. And at this stage as well, you're just going around checking everything, making sure things line up, making sure you're happy with the position of just going back to what we were looking at the very beginning of this video. I just want to move some of these around. we go 5, 6, put 7. Just make sure it's on the correct layer. So now it's reading a bit better. So we go 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That all works. And yeah, that's pretty good. I think we are happy now. So let's look at exporting this and saving it. I would say File, Save As. In our layout file, keep that saved, replace the old one. And we'll also do File, Export, PDF, and let's go to Desktop, Tutorial, New Folder, Finished Drawings, and we're going to actually call this Interior New York Loft Plan and Elevation Nuke Whitelock. What am I doing? New York Plan and Elevation. Don't need to put my name on there. I don't know why I was thinking that. New York Plan and Elevation, and today's date, which is the 16th of March. And that's good enough because the reason we put the date on it is so that we know what version we're on. We can also put version numbers in, whatever floats your boat, whatever works for you. Generally, most productions will have what's the word? Like a template that you can follow. So we'll save that, and we should get a nice big PDF. And there we go. That's the finished drawing, ready for construction, or ready to go into the designer to get signed off, and then off to construction, where it gets dished out to the relevant departments, and your set then gets built. So I think that's pretty much everything that we've covered. I will be doing add-on videos to this eventually. If this is popular enough, we'll delve into how to do the detail sheets for this, for the windows and the doors. We'll also look at maybe some renders. But for now, that's it. I hope it's been insightful. I hope you'll be able to follow along. Obviously, everything in the tutorial pack is available to you. You'll have the model ready-made, so you don't have to build along if you just want to experiment with layout. I'll also put in the pack a model that has no sections on it, so you can practice with sectioning. And I'd love to see what you do with it. Make it your own. Send me your stuff for an appraisal. I'd love to see what you can do with it, and you know, I might learn something from you guys as well. So thanks again. Thanks for following along. I think that we're up to nearly 10 hours now, so that should be enough to keep you all busy, and I look forward to seeing your finished drawings. Thanks again, and see you on the next tutorial.